The human who saved an alien princess, and forced an empire to bow. The night was supposed to be peaceful in the small human town beside the forest. Most people slept early, and only the cool wind moved between the quiet houses. But tonight, the sky was not dark at all. It glowed bright orange, as if the world itself was on fire. A huge blaze had swallowed the old research building in the town center. Flames shot through the broken windows. Thick smoke rose into the sky like a living monster climbing higher and higher. People ran everywhere. Some screamed for help. Some cried. Others stood frozen, staring at the fire with wide, shocked eyes. The heat pushed through the streets like a giant hand, warning everyone to stay away. In the middle of this chaos stood Jackson Hale. He was known for fixing machines, helping neighbors, and living a quiet life. He never caused trouble, and he never wanted attention. But now he stared at the burning building with a strange feeling pulling at his chest. The fire roared loudly, but beneath all that noise, Jackson thought he heard something else. Something small. Something soft. A cry. He turned his head, confused. "Did anyone hear that?" he asked. A woman clutching her child shook her head quickly. "No one is inside. Everyone came out before the fire spread. Don't go near it." But the cry came again, thin, weak, trembling. And this time Jackson knew he hadn't imagined it. It was coming from inside the burning building. The roof shook. Sparks burst out of broken glass. The walls were ready to collapse. Everyone knew entering the building meant death. But the cry came once more. Jackson felt his stomach twist. It didn't sound like a man, woman, or human child. It sounded different, almost musical. Almost inhuman. "Someone's still in there," Jackson shouted. A man grabbed his arm. "If you go in, you won't come out alive. Don't be stupid." Jackson didn't listen. He ran straight toward the flames. People tried grabbing him, pulling him back, yelling at him to stop. But he pushed past them and forced his way through the broken entrance. Inside, it felt like he had stepped into an oven. The air was thick with smoke. His eyes burned. Sparks snapped above him like angry snakes. The floor shook under his boots. "Hello," Jackson shouted, coughing. "Is someone here?" No answer. He moved deeper inside, stepping over fallen beams and shattered wires. Fire crawled along the walls like wild animals. Each breath hurt. Every step was dangerous. Then, just when he began to doubt himself, he heard it again, the cry. But now it was clearer, filled with fear. It echoed through the smoke, guiding him. He followed it into a half-collapsed room. Flames crawled along the broken ceiling. Heat wrapped around him like a burning blanket. And then he saw her. A small figure, almost child-sized, but clearly not human. Her skin was soft blue, glowing faintly even in the firelight. Her eyes were large and bright like tiny stars shining through smoke. A metal beam had fallen across her legs, trapping her. She looked up at Jackson with fear and pain. She tried to speak, but her voice came out in soft broken sounds he couldn't understand. But her eyes, those star-like eyes, begged for help. Jackson knelt beside her. "It's okay. I'm here. I'll get you out." The girl shook her head weakly, pointing toward the collapsing ceiling, warning him to leave her. But Jackson refused. He grabbed the burning metal beam with both hands. Heat stabbed through his palms like fire biting his skin. He groaned but didn't let go. "Come on, move," he shouted through clenched teeth. The beam shifted slightly. The ceiling cracked loudly. Fiery debris rained down around him. The room was seconds away from collapsing. The girl cried out softly, watching him with wide glowing eyes, full of fear and hope. With a final burst of strength, Jackson lifted the beam just enough. The girl pulled herself free and crawled into his arms, trembling. The ceiling gave one last sharp crack. No time left. Jackson carried her and ran, flames chasing his feet, smoke burning his lungs, the building falling apart behind him. He lowered his head and sprinted toward the light of the exit. He jumped through the doorway just as the roof collapsed behind them in a storm of fire and ash. The crowd gasped as Jackson fell to his knees, holding the strange glowing girl tightly against his chest. And the burning night silently marked the beginning of a story far greater than anyone could imagine. The burning building collapsed behind Jackson, sending a wave of sparks into the night sky. People stepped back in fear, but no one could look away from the strange blue-skinned girl trembling in Jackson's arms. Her skin glowed like soft moonlight. Her eyes blinked slowly, shining like distant stars. A man whispered, What is that thing?" A woman pulled her child closer. "Is it dangerous?" Jackson frowned at their words. "She's not a thing," he said softly. "She's a girl. And she's hurt." The girl pressed herself closer to Jackson, clutching his shirt with small shaking fingers. Her voice came out in a quiet musical sound, like a whisper carried by wind. Jackson bent down. "Hey, can you understand me?" She struggled to speak. Her lips moved slowly, shaping a word with great effort. Yeah. Jackson nodded. "Ilya? Is that your name?" She blinked, weak but certain. Paramedics rushed over, but the moment they reached toward her, Ilya cried out and hit her face in Jackson's chest. Lights on their medical scanners flickered strangely. The machines beeped wildly, confused by alien readings. One paramedic stepped back. "She's terrified of us. Let him stay with her." Jackson climbed into the ambulance with Ilya still clinging to him. Her small body trembled in his arms. Her faint glow pulsed like a weak heartbeat. As soon as the paramedics tried checking her again, the machines shut off completely, screens going black. One technician frowned. "I've never seen readings like this. It's like her biology breaks the equipment." Ilya looked up suddenly, her star-bright eyes widening with sudden fear. Her glow flickered violently. Hey, Jackson whispered. "It's okay. You're safe." But she wasn't looking at him. She was staring at the sky. Her lips trembled. Her voice shook. "Hunters." Jackson froze. The paramedic followed her gaze. "Hunters? What does she mean by?" A strange hum rolled through the town like thunder trapped under metal. People stepped outside their houses. Streetlights flickered. Dogs began to howl. Jackson stepped out of the ambulance, holding Ilya tightly. Above them, a dark shape slid across the clouds, sharp, metallic, moving without sound. Then another followed. And another. Alien drones. Silent. Smooth. Predatory. Thin beams of blue light swept across the streets like searching eyes. People screamed and ran. Some dropped to the ground. Others rushed into buildings. The air vibrated with the hum of machines not made by human hands. Ilya buried her face in Jackson's chest, shaking uncontrollably. Her glow dimmed with terror. "They're looking for something," the paramedic whispered. Jackson's voice came out low, steady. "Not something, someone." He looked down at Ilya. "They're hunting her." The realization hit him like ice. The fire hadn't been an accident. It was an attempt to kill her or flush her out. A drone stopped above the ruined building, scanning the ashes with a cold blue beam. Another passed over the town square, its lights sweeping dangerously close. Then one beam drifted toward the ambulance. Ilya whimpered softly, a sound filled with pure fear. Jackson tightened his hold. "It's okay. I've got you." But he knew staying meant death. He turned toward the forest, dark, deep, silent. The only place the drones weren't scanning. The paramedic grabbed his arm. "Where are you going? You can't run out there." Jackson didn't stop walking. "If I stay here, they'll find her. If they find her, they won't stop." "Jackson, this is insane." Maybe it was. But the small girl in his arms trusted him. And that meant he had no choice. Ilya weakly pointed toward the forest, whispering something in her broken tongue, a pleading sound, desperate and hopeful. Jackson nodded. "I know. We're going." The sky glowed with cold blue light as more drones arrived, weaving patterns like giant, watchful predators. The whole town fell silent under their shadows. And beneath that alien glare, Jackson Hale carried the trembling girl into the thick darkness of the forest, the only place left where the sky could not see them. He didn't know it yet. But this single step into the trees would drag him into a conflict older and larger than Earth itself. The forest swallowed them quickly. The deeper Jackson moved between the tall pines, the quieter the world became. The only sounds were Ilya's shaky breaths and the distant hum of the alien drones passing somewhere above the canopy. Their blue lights slid across the treetops like searching knives. Jackson held her close, feeling her small heartbeat flutter against his chest. Every few steps she flinched, her glowing skin flickering like a weak lantern. Fear lived in her eyes, but something else had appeared too, trust. After a long stretch of running, Jackson finally slowed. The trees were thick here, their branches woven together tightly enough to hide them from the sky. "You okay?" Jackson whispered. Ilya didn't answer at first. Her tiny hands gripped his shirt as though letting go meant death. But after a moment, she raised one trembling hand and touched her glowing eyes. She pointed to the sky. Then she whispered a word so soft it barely existed. "Sis." Jackson frowned. "Princess. You're a princess." She nodded, shame and fear mixing in her expression. Her small shoulders trembled. Her voice came out in broken pieces, as if she had learned only fragments of human words. Cle, bad, take, throne. The meaning hit Jackson hard. Her uncle wanted power. She was in his way. The fire. The hunters. The drones. It was all part of a plan to erase her. But why here? Jackson asked quietly. Why Earth? Ilya shook her head. She didn't know. Or she was too overwhelmed to explain. Her glowing eyes dimmed again, like stars fading behind clouds. Jackson kneeled so she could rest against a fallen tree. I'll protect you, he said. I won't let anyone take you. Her expression softened. She touched his hand gently, as if confirming whether he meant it. Then a sound cracked through the forest. A heavy branch snapped. Then another. Then another. The air turned cold. Ilya's glow flickered sharply. Pure terror filled her eyes. They found us, she whispered. Jackson turned. Shadows moved between the trees, steady and purposeful. Dark figures stepped into the clearing. Tall, strong, silent. Their armor did not shine. Their visors hid their faces. Their weapons glowed faintly, emitting a soft, dangerous hum. These were not the drones above. These were soldiers, the hunters Ilya had warned about. And they had tracked them perfectly. Jackson quickly pulled Ilya behind a thick fallen log. Stay down, he whispered. Don't move. She grabbed his wrist, her small fingers digging into his skin. No, she pleaded softly. It's okay, Jackson said. I'll be fine. But he wasn't sure at all. The hunters fanned out, scanning the forest floor. Their movements were smooth and efficient, like they had done this hundreds of times before. Jackson's eyes darted around. Fallen branches. Loose vines. Rocks. He couldn't fight them directly, but he could slow them down. He tied a vine between two trees, pulled a loose branch into position, and scattered dry leaves across a slope. Quick, desperate traps. Not perfect, but better than nothing. A soldier stepped forward. His foot caught the vine. He stumbled hard. Another hunter spun toward the sound. Jackson knew this was his moment. He leaped out from behind a tree and hurled a large branch, hitting the ground with a loud crash. The noise echoed through the forest, drawing the hunters' attention. They turned toward him. Ilya gasped quietly, her hands covering her glowing mouth. Jackson shouted, "Over here." The nearest hunter lunged. Jackson ducked behind a tree, heart pounding, and rolled down a small slope. Leaves scattered everywhere. The hunters chased, their armor brushing against the trees with metallic whispers. As one moved, he triggered the leaf-covered pit Jackson had made. He slipped and crashed into a fallen log with a sharp grunt. Jackson didn't wait. He ran back to Ilya, lifting her into his arms again. "We have to go," he whispered. She nodded quickly, clinging to him with all the strength she had left. Behind them, the hunters regrouped. Their voices in an alien language echoed through the trees, angry, sharp, determined. They were not giving up. Not tonight. Not ever. Jackson tightened his grip on Ilya and pushed deeper into the forest. Her faint glow lit the path just enough for him to run. She whispered one word again, the same word she used to describe him before. "Who, man?" But this time it sounded different. It wasn't a question. It was hope. The forest felt alive with danger. Every tree, every shadow, every breath of wind carried a warning. Jackson could feel it in his bones. Ilya clung to him as he moved, her faint glow trembling like a candle in a storm. Behind them, the hunters advanced. Slow. Silent. Precise. They weren't rushing. They didn't need to. They believed the forest belonged to them. Jackson reached a narrow clearing surrounded by towering trees. The moonlight barely touched the ground, leaving the space dim and thick with shadows. He stopped, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. "We cannot keep running forever," he whispered. Ilya said nothing. Her eyes were wide, shining with a mix of fear and helpless guilt. She pointed at herself and shook her head, as if blaming her own existence for the danger around them. Jackson knelt and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You being alive is not wrong," he said softly. "What they're doing is wrong. And I won't let them take you." Her lips trembled. A soft glow pulsed from her hands, a reaction she couldn't control. Then the forest shifted again. A rustle. A whisper of leaves. A soft hum of alien weapons. The hunters stepped into the clearing. There were 4 this time, moving like dark shadows wrapped in armor. Their visors flickered with cold blue light, scanning everything, the trees, the ground, Jackson, and finally, Ilya. One raised his arm. A thin energy beam glowed at the tip. Jackson reacted before he even thought. He grabbed Ilya and rolled behind a massive root as a searing shot blasted the trunk, sending pieces of bark flying. Ilya gasped, clinging to his shirt. "It's okay," Jackson whispered quickly. "Stay low." He scanned the surroundings. There were thick branches overhead, heavy logs on the ground, vines twisted around everything. The forest wasn't just a hiding place, it was a weapon. He needed to use it. The first hunter stepped closer, weapon raised. His visor flickered again, locking onto Ilya's faint glow. Jackson grabbed a thick fallen branch and swung it as hard as he could. The branch cracked against the hunter's armor. It didn't hurt him, but it surprised him. The soldier stepped back, momentarily unbalanced. The second hunter fired. Jackson ducked, the beam slicing through leaves above his head. He grabbed a handful of dirt and flung it toward the nearest visor. The dirt burst across it, blinding the soldier for a few seconds, enough time for Jackson to shove a fallen log into his path. The soldier tripped and crashed onto his back. Another came from the side. Jackson dodged but felt the sharp edge of a weapon graze his arm. He stumbled, breath catching at the sudden burst of pain. Ilya let out a frightened cry. Her hands glowed brighter. A low hum grew around her, shaking the air. Jackson turned. Ilya, wait. But the energy burst before he could finish. It exploded outward like a flash of white-blue light. The nearest hunter staggered back, visor cracking as sparks shot from the sides. The others recoiled, shielding themselves from the unexpected flare. The forest glowed for a moment, lit by Ilya's uncontrolled power. Jackson's eyes widened. You can do that?" Ilya looked terrified of herself. "Not control," she whispered. "Only fear." Jackson returned to his feet. "Stay behind me." He kicked another fallen branch toward a hunter's legs. The alien stumbled again. With a burst of courage, Jackson slammed another log into his chest. It barely dented the armor, but it pushed him back. The hunters regrouped, trying to coordinate. Jackson breathed heavily. His arms stung. His lungs burned. But he kept standing. He kept fighting. Because Ilya was behind him. And no one was taking her. The lead hunter raised his weapon again, aiming directly at Jackson's heart. Ilya screamed. Her glow erupted again, brighter, sharper, faster than before. A wave of shimmering energy rolled through the clearing. It didn't knock the hunters down, but it forced them to take several stumbling steps backward. Jackson seized the moment. "Run," he shouted. He grabbed Ilya's hand, pulling her toward a cluster of thick trees. Their boots thudded against the dirt as they darted through the narrow spaces. Loose branches slapped their legs. Vines caught their clothes. But they kept going. Behind them, the hunters struggled to regain their balance. Their armor hummed as they recalibrated, their visors flickering with frustration. Jackson and Ilya reached a narrow pass between two large rocks and slipped through before the hunters could reach them. Once they were far enough, Jackson stopped, chest heaving. He looked down at Ilya. She was shaking badly, exhaustion in every part of her body. "You saved us," Jackson whispered. She looked up, eyes filled with both guilt and pride. "Who, man?" she said softly, as if the word itself gave her strength. He smiled weakly. "Yeah. And I'm not leaving you." Behind them, the forest began to settle again, only for the silence to grow darker. The hunters had retreated. But not defeated. The next attack would be worse. And both of them knew it. The forest had grown too quiet. Jackson knew that kind of silence. It wasn't peace. It was warning. It was the kind of silence that came right before a predator made its final move. Ilya leaned weakly against his shoulder. Her glow had dimmed to almost nothing, only flickering when she breathed. They hid near the thick roots of a giant tree, trying to rest, but rest refused to come. Jackson's mind was racing. His heartbeat felt loud enough for the whole forest to hear. "We stopped them once," he whispered. "But they'll be back." Ilya nodded slowly, her eyes full of trembling fear. She touched his injured arm, concerned. The simple gesture made Jackson's chest tighten. Even hurt and terrified, she worried about him. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I'm still here." Suddenly, a soft vibration ran through the ground. So gentle at first that Jackson thought he imagined it. Then stronger. A low hum traveled between the trees like a warning trembling under the soil. The hunters were returning. Jackson lifted Ilya into his arms and pressed his back against the giant tree trunk. The darkness ahead shifted. A thin blue beam of light swept through the trees. Another beam followed. Then a third. They were surrounding them. Stay quiet, Jackson breathed. Ilya buried her face in his chest, her small fingers clutching his shirt with desperate strength. Then the forest exploded with movement. The hunters stepped out from every direction. Not for this time. Many more. Their armor shimmered softly in the moonlight, dark and sharp like carved obsidian. Their weapons hummed with a cold metallic sound. They moved with absolute confidence. Jackson's pulse hammered. He had no weapon. No plan. Just courage and instinct. But instinct had saved them before. It would have to save them again. A hunter stepped forward and raised his weapon. A thin streak of blue light shot toward them. Jackson dove behind a fallen log. The beam tore through the moss, sending dirt into the air. Ilya whimpered, gripping his arm tighter. "It's okay," Jackson whispered, though his voice shook. "I won't let them touch you." More beams cut through the trees. The hunters were pushing closer, hurting them like prey. Jackson needed distance. He needed chaos. Anything to break their formation. He grabbed a heavy stone and rolled it down the slope. It crashed against a tree, echoing through the forest. The hunters turned toward the noise for just a second. A second Jackson needed. He ran. Branches whipped across his face. Roots pulled at his boots. Ilya clung to him like a frightened heartbeat. A hunter teleported ahead of them in a flash of blue light, blocking the path. His weapon lifted. Jackson didn't think. He threw his full weight against the soldier. It was like hitting a metal wall, but the impact knocked the hunter off balance just enough for Jackson to skid past him and dart into another path. A beam grazed Jackson's leg. He stumbled, biting back a cry. Ilya's glow flickered faster, reacting to his pain. "No," she whispered, shaking. "Who, man hurt?" "I'm fine," Jackson lied. "Just hold on." Another hunter appeared on their left. Ilya's glow suddenly brightened. Her small hands lifted, trembling. A pulse of light burst from her palms. The hunter staggered backward, visor sparking. But Ilya collapsed from exhaustion. Jackson caught her before she hit the ground. Hey, stay with me." Her breathing was quick and shallow. She was too drained to use her power again. The hunters regrouped. They began moving in a perfect circle, closing tighter and tighter. There was no escape this time. Jackson stepped in front of Ilya, spreading his arms to shield her even though he had nothing to fight with. His heart pounded like a drum inside his ribs. He whispered, "You're not taking her. Not while I'm alive." The nearest hunter raised his blade. Jackson grabbed a broken branch from the ground, thin, cracked, barely a weapon, but he held it like it was a sword forged for war. The hunters stepped closer. Jackson swung the branch with all the strength he had left. It cracked against the soldier's chest. The hunter barely moved, but the impact forced him to take one small step back. It was enough to anger the others. Beams shot through the air. Jackson ducked. Rolled. Used the tree as a shield. Pain shot through his side, but he kept standing. He kept fighting. Human determination versus alien power. The hunters didn't understand why he fought so hard. They had captured royalty before. But never had one single human stood against them with nothing but heart. A hunter lunged with a glowing blade. Jackson dodged but slipped, falling to his knees. The blade hovered inches from his face. Ilya cried out, her glow erupting once more, weak but sharp. The flash blinded the hunter for a heartbeat. Jackson used that moment to throw dirt into the alien's visor, then kicked the soldier hard in the knee. The hunter fell sideways. But the others were ready to strike. Jackson pulled Ilya close, bracing himself for the worst. Then every hunter froze. A distant hum filled the forest. Not cold. Not sharp. Warm, heavy, powerful. The ground trembled. The hunters slowly turned their heads toward the sky. Jackson looked up too. And saw a massive shape breaking through the clouds. Silver. Silent. Grand. A ship larger than any of the drones or hunter craft. A ship that radiated authority. Ilya's glow surged with sudden hope. She whispered a single word. Home. The night sky cracked open with silver light. The massive ship lowering through the clouds wasn't like the hunters' cold machines. This one moved with authority, like a giant crowned with starlight. Its hull shimmered with strange symbols that shifted like living metal. The air hummed warmly, vibrating through the ground beneath Jackson's feet. The hunters tensed immediately. They stepped back, weapons lowering instinctively. Even their sharp breathing changed, as if fear had suddenly replaced certainty. Ilya pulled herself upright in Jackson's arms. Her glow brightened, faint but hopeful. Grand, Father, she whispered, voice trembling. Jackson blinked. Your grandfather. He's. Before he finished, the huge ship released smaller vessels, each dropping gently into the forest clearing. They touched down silently, forming a wide circle around the hunters and around Jackson. Dozens of armored soldiers stepped out. Their armor was unlike the hunters, pure silver, smooth, and glowing with thin lines of blue energy. Every movement felt disciplined, respectful, precise. But what shocked Jackson wasn't their arrival. It was their reaction. The moment they saw Ilya. Every single soldier dropped to one knee. The forest floor filled with the sound of synchronized armor striking soil. Their heads bowed low. Their weapons lowered completely. Not toward Jackson. Not toward the hunters. But toward her. Ilya pressed her tiny hands to her mouth, overwhelmed. Jackson looked around, stunned. They know you? She nodded weakly. Royal Guard. The hunters shifted nervously. They were no longer the predators. They had become cornered animals. A deeper hum echoed from the large ship. A ramp extended slowly. Soft silver lights lit the path. A tall figure stepped out, taller than the others, dressed in white and silver armor that glowed like moonlit stone. Blue symbols flowed down his chest like liquid stars. His presence filled the forest. His voice was calm but powerful, like rolling thunder softened by age. Where is the heir? His soldiers parted instantly, creating a path. Jackson felt Ilya tense, then relax. She slipped from his arms, weak but determined, and took a few wobbly steps toward the figure. The tall man rushed forward, not with force, but with the urgency of a grandfather terrified for his grandchild. He knelt and swept her into his arms. Ilya, he whispered in his own tongue. His voice cracked with relief, sorrow, and rage all at once. You are safe. You are safe now. Ilya cried softly against his chest. Jackson watched, feeling a strange warmth in his own eyes. For the first time since he found her in the flames, Ilya didn't look afraid. The Emperor, though Jackson didn't need anyone to tell him that's who this man was, slowly stood, holding her carefully. Then he turned his gaze toward Jackson. His eyes were ancient, sharp, and impossibly wise. You, he said, voice echoing through the clearing. Jackson stiffened. You carried her. Protected her. Fought for her. Jackson swallowed. Anyone would've. No, the Emperor interrupted gently. Not anyone. There are humans who run from fire. You ran into it. The hunters, still trapped in the circle, trembled as the Emperor's soldiers approached them. A signal was given. The silver-clad warriors seized the hunters silently, disarming them, forcing them to kneel. Justice was no longer distant. It was standing right here. The Emperor stepped closer to Jackson. His voice lowered, heavy with meaning. You, human, saved the last child of my blood. The only light left in a house nearly destroyed by betrayal. Jackson looked down, unsure how to respond. The emperor placed a hand over his heart and bowed his head slightly. A gesture meant only for the highest honor. The silver soldiers saw this, and in an instant, every soldier in the clearing bowed toward Jackson. A wave of shining armor bent in unison, heads lowered in respect. The forest glowed with their kneeling formation. It was breathtaking, unreal, overwhelming. Ilya, still held in her grandfather's arms, reached one hand toward Jackson. Her glowing eyes were soft, steady, full of gratitude. "Who, man hero," she whispered. The emperor straightened. "Your courage will be sung on worlds you do not yet know exist. You have earned the loyalty of my empire." Jackson stared, breath caught in his chest. He had only wanted to save one frightened girl in a burning building. He never imagined standing in a forest while an alien empire knelt to him. Above them, the massive ship hovered like a silver moon, humming softly, ready to bring peace instead of fear. The war Ilya had been running from was shifting. And Jackson Hale had become the turning point. Morning slowly pushed away the night. Soft golden light filtered through the trees, touching the forest floor where everything had changed. The world felt different now, quiet, but full of something powerful. Something new. Jackson stood beside Ilya as the first rays of sunlight warmed the clearing. She looked calmer now. Her glow was soft and steady, no longer flickering with fear. Her tiny hand rested in Jackson's as if she never wanted to let go. High above them, the massive silver warship hovered like a second sun, casting long shadows across the earth. Dozens more ships drifted through the sky, forming careful patterns. But despite their size, despite their power, there was no threat in the air, only honor. The emperor stepped forward, holding Ilya's hand gently in his own. His armor shimmered like living crystal beneath the morning light. Around him, thousands of silver-clad soldiers gathered in perfect formation, their helmets reflecting the dawn. Then, as one, they all knelt. The sound of metal striking earth echoed through the forest like a single heartbeat. It traveled across the trees, across the town nearby, across every human watching from a distance. Earth had never seen anything like it. The most feared military force in the galaxy now bowed in complete respect, not to a king, not to a warrior, but to a simple human man who had chosen to run into a fire for a girl he didn't even know. Jackson's breath caught in his throat. His hands trembled slightly. I didn't do anything special," he whispered. The emperor turned to him, his gaze steady and ancient. "Courage does not wait for permission. Courage does not ask if a life is small or great. Courage simply acts." Ilya moved closer to Jackson. Her tiny fingers brushed his cheek, a gesture full of innocence and gratitude. "Earth safe," she whispered softly. "Because, you." Jackson knelt beside her, eye level with her glowing eyes. "You're safe too," he said. "That's all that matters." The emperor lifted his arm. A signal. Above them, dozens of ships opened their bays. Soft orbs of shimmering blue light drifted down toward the ground. They carried alien knowledge, healing technology, advanced tools, and peaceful gifts, things hundreds of years beyond human invention. A gift not of conquest, but of alliance. "For the one who saved our heir," the emperor declared, "we offer peace and friendship to his world." Humans watching from the tree line stared with wide, disbelieving eyes as the floating light settled gently around them like falling stars. Jackson felt overwhelmed. He had never wanted praise or rewards. He just wanted Ilya safe. But now, standing in the golden morning, he understood the weight of what he had done. Saving one frightened child had changed the future of two worlds. The emperor approached Jackson again, placing a firm, respectful hand on his shoulder. "Your name will be spoken on distant planets," he said. "Your courage will guide our children. You have earned the honor of my entire empire." Jackson swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. I only did what felt right. Doing what is right, the emperor said, is the greatest power any being can have. Ilya reached up and wrapped her arms around Jackson's neck. "Who man brave," she whispered with a soft smile. Jackson hugged her back, feeling the warmth of her glow against his chest. The silver soldiers rose as one, their armor shining brightly as sunlight fully broke through the trees. The forest, once filled with danger and fear, now hummed with the promise of peace. The emperor looked toward the sky. "Our worlds begin a new chapter today." Jackson nodded slowly. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't anyone special. But he had made a choice. A choice that would echo through galaxies. As the Empire's ships slowly ascended, lifting into the sky like silver giants, Ilya remained beside him, holding his hand tightly. One man had saved one lost girl. One human act of bravery had moved an empire. And the universe would never forget it. The day the empire knelt, humanity rose.